I've made this kind of video a few times before, and this time around, I just want it to be a flow of consciousness. Um, yeah, sharing my journey up until this point. I know my last video touched on lupus and autoimmune and mental health. So, yeah, I'll go ahead and just start with growing up and being very in touch with Earth and bugs and birds and just everything that lives and breathes here on Mother Earth. And yeah, there was just there was a lot also going on growing up. I lived in a big family with minimal financial support. My mom was a single mom. And yeah, I grew up with a lot of needing to feel like my voice needed to be heard. Growing into myself didn't happen until later on in my life. There were moments in my life where parts of that came through. But when it came to developing who it is that I am, I found that parts of me had been stinted. But I just want to state that it's never too late to grow those parts of you. And as I began to heal my inner child, I revisited parts of my childhood that I needed to feel for the first time. Growing up with mental, verbal, physical abuse, there were times where I felt like if I were to speak up that I would be in danger. So speaking up now and finding my voice, I'm still learning how that feels in my body and moving through some of the fear and letting go of a lot of the fear that was created growing up by using my voice. And to just be seen. My defense mechanism was to please others, and that is also something that I'm moving through, is to think about what I need first. And so many people grow up, whether it's in a household such as the one I grew up in, or just in a society that that is evolving. Again, I will speak to that, but that had and still may have parts of it that have a tendency to put people in a group to where they need to move at the same pace, like school and things like that. Especially with social media nowadays, there seems to be, this is also evolving, so I will speak to that. But there seemed to have been this idea that everyone needs to grow at certain times in their life, and everyone is living on their own timeline at their own pace. So being gentle and forgiving along the way in healing the inner child in growing your business, in relationships, and all sorts of other things. So, yeah. Yeah, I grew up with a big family. Lots of avoidance of feelings, whether that was through alcohol, drugs, and just a lot of different avoiding mechanisms that were kind of passed on to me. And also my body attempting to protect itself by often leaving my body. And that was something that I easily did, being an Aquarius, being a triple air sign. Yeah, going to other places definitely happened as a kid. I wasn't fully aware of what was going on until a few years ago. Looking back at times when I would visit places in my dreams and all of that. So recognizing that a lot of these things are actually in fact gifts, and looking at them with love and understanding and compassion now give me an opportunity to move through the painful parts of how I discovered those things. So yeah, growing up, I have an older sister. We have the same birthday. I've noticed our connections when it comes to our similarities and also our very big differences. It made me realize that people can come to the same conclusion, and in the way in which they get there can be completely different. Their journey may look, feel, and be very, very different. But the place in which we end up is all the same. So, yeah, I really just want to talk about my journey up until this point. So I may skip around a bit. This has no particular order, even though my mind is attempting to make it that way. Yeah, I felt deeply as a kid. I wouldn't want to step on ants because it would make me cry. So my keen attention and my ability to be very present with everything that is came through very strong. And to others, it may have seemed like a distraction, but to me, it seemed like true connection. And that everything else was a distraction. I know I'm not the only one, but there was something inside of me for a very long time that felt like, doesn't anyone see what I'm seeing? Doesn't anyone feel what I'm feeling? It just so happens that I and many others live a life where maybe they're surrounded around people who may have forgotten that feeling of connection to everything that is, with the hustle and... Hi, buddy. Hello. You wanted to be here with me. With the hustle and bustle of everyday life, there just seems to be a lot of distractions put in place to keep people on a hamster wheel of needing to make enough money, needing to do the next thing, doing. Well, we are human beings. We are not human doings. So it took me a long time to start to get tuned back in to what I would also say is my innate childlike nature. Part of healing the inner child, it can be really painful. Shadow work is really painful. All of these things are really painful. It also brings me to a place that I had once forgotten. And I'll say my favorite quote, "The wound is where the light enters you." Truly, to acknowledge my pain has given me so much freedom, has given me so much happiness. And it's also allowed me to, when uncomfortable feelings, when anger, when grief, when sadness are here with me, I allow it to pass through me, knowing that it will not last forever, that everything is temporary, but that it's necessary to feel the spectrum of my feelings and to not allow uncomfortable feelings to be avoided, to be muffled out, to be snuffed out. Because in doing so, the body will remember those feelings. The body remembers trauma. The body remembers these things. So after a while, if it is not acknowledged and processed, it can be held in the body. And after enough time, if someone is a big old feeler like I am, these physical manifestations can be very serious and very dangerous. So yeah, just allowing what comes through to come through. There may be times where, especially when big awakenings happen, the body will react. And if there is something that's not in balance, if there is something that that is needing processed, it may come through as something very serious. And I will put voice to that. Same year I was diagnosed with lupus, I had shingles, and it lasted for about 6 weeks and has taken years to heal the nerve pain or the lack of feeling in that area. And I want to let you know that I am here to support you through these processes, to let you know that you're not alone, to let you know that you're not crazy. These things also can manifest through cancer, through skin rashes, through severe chronic pain, can manifest in losing your hair. It can be many different things. It took me years to not be angry with my body because my body was just trying to protect itself, and really coming into some of the uncomfortable feelings of taking responsibility for how I may have been avoiding some of the feelings that I was having. And there may be times where you feel alone and you feel isolated and you feel like no one's there to help you. I just want to let you know that I hear you, and I have gone through a lot of physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual pain. And I will say that the storm comes through, the hurricane comes through, the tornado comes through, the monsoon comes through just to clear a path that is meant for you. Some of our biggest hardships create and are pathways and portals to some of the most amazing dreams, some of the most amazing experiences in our life. So with all of that being said, yeah, growing up in a family where I felt misunderstood, where I even started to develop this sense of like knowing myself through others and through the expectations of others, through the reactions of others. My Libra rising energy is very much the shadow aspect of it is people pleasing, and I will definitely speak to the fact that it took me quite some time to find out who it is that I was, because I started to recognize the person that I was made a lot of people uncomfortable. Unshaved armpits, bright clothes, conversations to be had that not everyone wants to have, shadow work, walking around barefoot. And not all of these things necessarily are looked down upon. Sometimes it's just in my mind. Yes, there are times where I know I make people uncomfortable, and I just had to embrace the fact that maybe I'm supposed to make them uncomfortable. Me shining bright attracts not only like energies and light energies, but shadow is only created if there's a bright light shining nearby it. So keep that in mind when you are moving through shining bright and being who it is that you are authentically. Moving into like middle school, there were just severe depression, wanting to end my life. Surrounding myself around people that may not have been very beneficial to my highest good. There was light and dark throughout this entire journey. Moving into high school, same thing. I did begin to find a little bit more individuation, but still was a little bit under my sister's wing. I do recognize the year that she left for college and I was in my senior year. You would have thought that I, had found all my friends, was on varsity cheer, and all of the things that that to someone looking on the outside are like, oh, she has it all. Good grades, all the things. But I felt highly, highly lonely because for so long I had been living under my sister's shadow. I had gone on to the dance team and the varsity cheer team because my sister wanted me to. Did I end up being a badass and being really good at it? Yes. But I look back and I recognize how much of who I was because someone else was telling me how to be and asking me how to be. Moving into college, I continued to really go into a space that did not serve me. I was very promiscuous. Noting the fact that I have gone back and thanked each version of myself, have laid flowers at their feet, have offered them patience, forgiveness, and love, knowing that each version of myself has brought me to this moment. So, there may initially be shame, guilt, and resentment towards past versions of oneself or situations or even people. And that may take some time to move through and alchemize and revisit and revisit and revisit those parts of oneself. So yeah, just being gentle with yourself during that process. Moving into young adulthood. I had just lost my grandmother in 2011. I came back to my hometown after being away in college for a year, feeling like a bit of a failure, feeling like my aspirations to be an apparel and textile designer had fallen short, that I was using a lot of different things and people to avoid my feelings, and then I was forced to feel. And from there, I met someone who happened to be someone who took advantage of that energy. And for 8 years, I was in a very highly toxic relationship. And there was a lot of things that I experienced, and again was living life through the lens of someone else and how they wanted me to be. Although throughout this entire journey, there were always times where I learned more about who I was. There were some very, very dark times during that period. A lot of drinking and using substances and using my body in ways that has taken a lot of time for me to, again, lay flowers at that version of myself's feet. I learned a lot about myself, though, too. my confidence came through. And even though some parts of it were a false sense of confidence, some of that has stayed with me, knowing that I can create anything. I can be anyone that I want to be. And yeah, there's a part of me that doesn't want to mention parts of who I was, and I'm going to go ahead and just say it because I know that there are people out here that really need to hear it and may also be in this part of their life. Now, I will not condemn cam models or people that that are in that industry. I think that was a phase for me, and parts of me, again, that gained a lot of my feminine energy came back to me. It was like the beginning phases of me just like not caring about what my family thought and things like that. And I feel like I revisit that space knowing that I'm going through a different phase of that. And again, really moving through detaching from the need for external validation. So that was something that I was doing for years. I recognize now that I can have my own business. I can create the life that I want. It wasn't just through that experience that I had that revelation, but it's all about how I view it and how I look at it. At first, it was through so much shame, so much guilt. And now I just see it as, wow, I'm a multidimensional being, and there's so many versions of myself that I've even lived here on this earth, that I'm so grateful to have experienced. Yeah, losing my grandma felt like everything was crumbling around me, and in a sense, it had to. 2011 moving into 2012 was big for a lot of people. For me, I didn't consciously go through that awakening until 2020, so moving a little bit ahead after having exited that toxic relationship and moved into rekindling a flame that didn't necessarily need to be rekindled, but there was something that the universe needed me to revisit, and I did, and that has since been laid to rest peacefully. And then I entered a relationship in which I had never experienced before. One that offered acceptance and love and patience. And was it always like that? No. Were there fights? Yes. Were there disagreements? Yes. Was there storming out of our apartment and taking a drive and just having space to myself? Yes. This journey felt different. I felt it immediately. I felt like the synchronicities between us, between the music we liked, between our conversations, the journeys that we had had up until that point, losing a bunch of weight prior to meeting each other, not really being into drinking, and yeah, I really noticed that we were both on a path to become who we were. Was I very much attached to the fact that I wanted to remain on that path with him? Yes. That was not the universe's plan. I awakened during that time, right after closing off that highly toxic relationship that ended up being a friends with benefits for 3 years. Probably a few months after I closed that door officially was when I met this individual. And I was introduced to having space held for me so that I could hold space for myself. My self-love began to grow. From about 2020 to 2022, I slowly shed a lot of different versions of myself that needed to just no longer be there. It was kind of a scary time. I was really sick with lupus and moving through trying to financially make it on my own, as well as trying to eat differently and move through that. And continuing to try to hold a job and all sorts of things. Then I moved out of state with my significant other, and then I came back to my body after 25 plus years through Kundalini yoga, moving through the chakras and the energy centers of my body. I I came to. I remembered who I was, and I remembered my innate being, my innate essence, had some really magical, divine experiences. And I will note that my intention to come back to myself initially started with low impact yoga, to try and help with my joints. And my intention was also to heal. And I really didn't know exactly where that was taking me, but I had been gifted crystals and then had found more. And the first crystals that I chose happened to be associated with the energy centers that I needed the most work with. And would almost be like the key to my healing. And not almost, they are. And I'll note that the way in which the universe decides to communicate with you is going to look, feel, and be different than my experience. I will note that I was initially ashamed of how this all came to be. And I don't need to be, because I was dabbling in psychedelics at the time. Never thought that that would be a thing for me. I knew about 10 years prior, being introduced to them and not wanting to embark upon that journey. And I think my soul truly knew that it wasn't time. And then when I was ready, when I felt safe with someone, my entire world began to open up. So that journey was leading me in cohesion with other things that I was doing and asking for, into connecting with everything that lives and breathes and is. So I will say that psychedelics did have a big part in my journey to opening up my mind. And Yep. And then feeling like I'm on top of the world, doing this kind of connecting will also bring up a lot of shadow. And initially that came with frustration, because I thought, like, what is wrong with me? What am I doing wrong? There is nothing wrong with me. I wasn't doing anything wrong. I just needed to learn and integrate a lot of things that I hadn't yet experienced or felt. As my self-love began to foster and grow and heal, my need for that relationship that I was in was no longer, it didn't need to exist anymore. There was a huge part of me that recognized that pretty quickly. And I just thanked that person, and they moved on. It still took time for me to integrate that experience and move through the feelings of what it felt like to feel abandoned. And it brought up a lot of root pain that came with feeling abandoned as a child. And my self-love has continued to grow throughout this entire experience, knowing that I'm never really alone. That divine source, spirit, is within me and everywhere around me, that I'm supported. I am so supported. Some of the things that helped me through that, breathwork. I became a certified breathwork facilitator. helping to connect my mind, body, and spirit, continuing with yoga and Kundalini yoga, also helping to regulate my emotions and connect my mind, body, and spirit, being outside more, moving around more, connecting with loved ones and friends that I felt safe to be around and talk about these things. People that I felt could hold space for me, where I didn't need to just show up and feel like I had to hold space for them. Journaling, listening to music, getting around and shaking and dancing and just moving my body, allowing any energy to just move through it as it needs to. Moving through each day, not trying to rush things. Doing Reiki on myself. Having a way to clear spaces, saging, having rituals that I do with crystals and other things. And again, this is going to look different for you. I encourage you to find what these things are for you. Connecting with pets, being in water, connecting with nature, sitting near a fire. Everyone's going to be different. I'm an Aquarius. A lot of my chart, though, is very earthy. So sitting in the grass and being in nature and grounding is highly beneficial for me and for everyone, really. So yeah, just encouraging whatever that is for you. So moving up to this present moment, I have just become certified as an introspective, trauma-informed breathwork facilitator. I hold space for individuals to move through these changes and these shifts. Wherever you are meant to be exactly where you are. Sometimes that's hard to hear. Understanding that there are lessons to learn, that there are things to integrate. Also recognizing the beauty in the chaos. Like, I'm sitting in a public park and there may be sirens in the background. There may be cars driving by. There may be, a lot of hustle and bustle going on around me, but there's also bugs landing on my shirt and butterflies and a lot of different birds. Beautiful, beautiful clouds, gorgeous trees, and the sun hitting just right. And just recognizing and noticing those things. How does the universe speak to you? Take a moment and just listen. And also, any other different noises. It may take some time. It took me time, and still does, to recognize the cars and the barking dogs and the car alarms and the sirens and all of that, knowing that it all exists together, that we live in a world of polarity, that humans have polarities, that we all have a light and a shadow, a yin and a yang, and that they coexist together. So yeah, with all of that being said, I am here to hold space for you. I offer one-on-one sessions for anyone moving through autoimmune disease, dysfunction, anyone going through chronic pain, anyone going through mental health, anyone that feels marginalized, anyone that feels misunderstood, anyone that just needs someone to talk to. I offer one-on-one sessions that are through introspective breathwork therapy. So it really just helps you to connect to your breath and come into your body and begin to feel safe in the body. Begin to feel safe in the body as well as the environments around you, and recognizing what that feels like, what needs to shift, what needs to be recognized, what needs to be felt in the body. A lot of the times, it's really not about the mind. It's about allowing the breath to move through your body and feel sensations that may be calling out, that your body may be wanting to communicate to you. And that happens through the breath. The breath is our life force. A lot of the time in my past, I had found I was holding my breath, holding my life force in. So a lot of this is holding space for you, connecting with what wants to be here through the breath. And it really just allows for everything to just quiet down for a second, for you to tap into the innate messenger that your body is through your breath, and feeling into whatever needs to be there. And yeah, I'll make more videos on breathwork and what it does, how it helps physically, mentally, spiritually. And with all of that being said, I will link my link tree below, and that has all of my services, including breathwork, that really just help you to be the navigator of your journey, your healing, your authentic experience in this life. So yeah, I've got all of my service values in there. I have sliding scale options as well as payment plans that are available. Feel free to message me, like this video, comment below, and really just, share your experience. Bringing voice to your experience can really help to integrate who it is that you are and what you're experiencing in this very moment. With all that being said, sending peace and love to y'all throughout your journey. I look forward to connecting with you.